Welcome back to the Nearby Veggies garden. We've been gardening for years, but we make mistakes like everyone else. I'm here today underneath the Kiwi Arch. Named so because it was supposed to have kiwis growing all the way over it. This arch tunnel of kiwis dripping with fruit. However, 2 years later, and our kiwis are no bigger than they were when we bought them. We planted 6 kiwi vines here, and now there's only 3 of the originals left. They grew a little bit, then they died back, then they grow again, and the kiwis we have here now are ones which died back to nothing. It's smaller than when we bought it.
We bought this golden kiwi last year. Only last year it was this tall. Oh, some things are just here to try your patience. Maybe next year.
We were about to plant something else, but then they regrew. And they've grown a little bit, and gradually over the last 2 years, they've actually grown as big as they were when we planted them. So we started this Kiwi Arch project by putting stakes in a Meraid cut mimosa, and we lashed the mimosa on, we bent it over, and it looks fabulous. But the kiwis didn't grow. We're still hoping that this will one day become an arch tunnel of kiwis.
Oh, the vision I had when this was done. Not just the kiwis that Dan's talking about, but flanked with flowers and all bursting with colour. And as Dan said, none of that happened. Someone even asked me if I was building a bridal arch. But anyway, to mitigate that issue, I planted some of this Spanish flag early summer, thinking that it would grow up and at least cover the front. But it didn't really start growing until autumn. And, well, beautiful as it is, it's an annual and it's not frost hardy, so it'll be gone. And then on this side, I planted a jasmine. Now, it's not doing brilliantly, but maybe it'll cover. So this is a pink jasmine, which comes out earlier than the white jasmine, and it's very fragrant. So this is an attempt to fix the problem. But initially, I had a teepee here and here that I'd made from the bamboo, and I grew sweet pea up that. This sort of image of coming through the archway and the fragrant sweet peas. But it's a big flop. And, you know, as much and all as we love this arch, it isn't going to last forever. And I really thought that the kiwis would create their own strength and structure, and we may have to take this down in the future and start again. But that's the way gardening is. Even when you've been at it for years, you still make mistakes. Sometimes it's wrong plant, wrong place. And we'd also covered this pathway multiple times in bark and cardboard to make it look clean. But what has actually happened, it keeps regrowing, and now we've got a green walkway. So we've decided that's what we really wanted all along. So on to the next mistake.
Well, if you've been watching us for a while, you might know about the onions that I famously strimmed. I'll go and show you where it was that I strimmed the onions. So along here, before we had the path, I used to come along here and strim. And the onions didn't get that much attention, they were a bit overgrown. And you couldn't even see there were any onions there. And so I strimmed the whole lot. But now they're coming back, they're regrowing. There's actually onions here. It's not all bad. We got a few onions to eat and we had a good laugh. And we believe that laughter is the best fertilizer in the garden. We'll take you on to the next hilarious mistake we made. We're going to go up into the vegetable garden for this one, and Meraid will tell you all about it.
Or maybe we should just pop over to one minor error about the boars, because we had boars on our land and we sort of put our trust in, I don't know what, but just trust that the boars would never come near us. And someone suggested in the comments that we needed to put shoes out. So here's one of Dan's old boots. I think he weed in them.
I've been pissing on that.
But it's working. Size 48 boots, full of wee, seems to be a deterrent. So that mistake of just letting things be didn't really work either. But on to the main thing back in the vegetable garden. This is like going on a journey of errors. You might remember the day I came dancing out here, singing about a Tamarillo. La 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 la. Woo!
We're actually lacking in a little bit of shade here in the height of the summer, so this should help out with the shade.
It looks like a tomato.
Also known as a tree tomato.
But it's not a tomato. Although it is in the same family as potatoes
And tomatoes.
and tomatoes.
The nightshade family.
Yeah. It's got really beautiful big, like tropical style leaves. And it produces fruit in the winter. And they say that one plant can produce
20 kilos
20 kilos of
fruit.
tomato-y style fruit. I don't think you've ever heard me mention that Tamarillo ever since. And that's because the Tamarillo is no more. 1 second. This is the Tamarillo. Dead. When we first read about a Tamarillo, it said, it is such an easy plant to grow. It doesn't need nothing to worry about, just produces for years. So I saw a Tamarillo, I bought a Tamarillo, and we planted a Tamarillo. And once it was planted, one of you lovely commenters said, oh, that's not going to survive the frost. But I responded and said, oh, but we've got this great big olive tree to protect it. Well, that great big olive tree didn't protect it. We've got the Serra da Estrela over this direction, and the cold air from there came down and took Tamarillo out. So now we'll move on to the next mistake.
So the first year we were here, I dug the bed behind me and planted potatoes. We had 12 kilos of seed potatoes, and we were very hopeful to have a big harvest to keep us going for at least 6 months of the year. And I took advice from Meraid, the Irish potato queen.
This is so embarrassing. So being from Ireland, we're kind of very fond of potatoes. And so we planted the potatoes, and I said to Dan, oh, they don't need watered. You never water potatoes. Who in their life ever heard of anybody watering potatoes? Well, it turned out, where did we plant the potatoes?
We planted the potatoes in the driest section of the land.
Well, we didn't know that at the time.
We didn't realise that at the time, and it was the hottest, driest summer
For
in 90
years.
And out of the 12 kilos of potatoes that we planted, we had a harvest of 5 kilos. Almost nothing.
I mean, it's so bad that I'm going to lose my citizenship.
Yeah.
How can I be Irish? Yeah, Dan never lets me forget that. But anyway, we did redeem ourselves after that.
This year we had a very good crop of potatoes, and we've got one more meal left of our potatoes that we harvested in June, and it's now the middle of November, So they've done us pretty well.
Yeah, so there's no shame anymore. We have recovered from that mistake. Even when you're sort of seasoned gardeners or you believe you've got a lifetime and generations of experience behind you, it doesn't always work. We're in a completely new climate to what both of us have been used to. We are now living in central Portugal. It's hot, dry summers and cool but mild, wet
We do get
winters.
frosts here. Gardening and growing plants is always experimental. Learning about the climate and your land, your situation, is different for absolutely everyone.
And the thing is as well, Dan, there's no shame. Because it's experimental, there shouldn't be, we could sit here all day and show you all the wonderful things that we do grow and grow very successfully, but it wouldn't give a very fair and honest picture of what life is really like as a garden when you're trying to grow things. We never show you everything at the same time, except when we do a tour, because we've prepared for weeks clearing and tidying so that it looks its very best, and it doesn't look like that all the time. And there's it's something that you've just got to accept. Bits of the garden will look beautiful sometimes, and others will look pretty rough and dodgy.
Different times of the year, the garden will look different. There's always something different growing or doing well, and the same from one year to the next. One year something will do well, the next year you won't even see it.
Yeah, exactly. So we hope you have a little bit of a laugh at our expense, and we'll get over the embarrassment of having to let you into all our little foibles and errors and mistakes over the last 2 years. But where we go next?
What's the next on the list? Oh, the disappearing trees.
The incredible shrinking trees. Yeah. The incredible shrinking trees. Well, let's go there now.
Got thorn.
Oh.
You see it there?
Oh, yeah. I get my glasses away. Yes, got it. See?
Oh, yeah.
You'll not see this on the camera. It's tiny. It's Dan.
Yeah, we've got a lot of brambles here, but we are planting thornless blackberries.
Oh, yeah.
We've planted a thornless blackberry on the Kiwi Arch. Last year we planted this pomegranate tree, and as you can see, it was 5 foot tall. It's quite a healthy tree last summer. Then it dropped all of its leaves and nothing grew again in the spring. And then eventually, right down to the root, the pomegranate started regrowing, and it regrew. And now it's not quite as big as the original, but it's going to get there, and it is alive and it's growing. So this pomegranate is the second pomegranate that we've planted. The first one, this is the first pomegranate we planted, and it's still nowhere near as big as it was more than 2 years ago.
It started off this height, last year it grew to this height, and this year now it's this height. It's an incredible shrinking tree.
We thought we'll plant a bigger one this time, and we did, but it did the same thing. We've planted a third pomegranate down the bottom, and hopefully that one is not going to shrink this year. Whoa. At the end of the first summer that we were here, we bought this persimmon in the market, and it was quite a substantial tree when we bought it. This tree was €15 when we bought it, and it was a good 6 foot, and it looked beautiful for months and months. And then the winter came, the leaves dropped, and nothing grew back in the spring. But eventually it started growing back from the rootstock. We don't quite know what rootstock it is, if it is going to be a persimmon or some other tree, because we don't know what the persimmon was grafted onto. But we'll see in time. Eventually, when this produces fruit, we might find out what it is.
The pistachio tree is the final incredible shrinking tree. This shrunk because it was nibbled by a deer, or maybe a rabbit. Who knows? Goodbye, dear pistachio. But it's regrowing. It just might not be the same pistachio we planted.
Maybe.
You're not videoing, are you?
Yeah.
I'm holding a whole sheet of my notes. It's like I have so many mistakes, I need notes. So, cardoons. These, I thought, were going to be the answer to hiding the ugly wall. My neighbour had one of these cardoons in flower just before we moved here, October 2 years ago. And I took a seed head and I saved the seeds, sowed some in little modules, and managed to get 32 seedlings to germinate. And then I potted them on into little pots, and when they were about yay high, I decided I would plant them. And I planted about 15 all around this wall. And although they were only little tiny things, I thought, oh, within a year, these, because that's how quick they grow, they'll grow tall and cover the ugly wall. So they started growing and they were getting really promising. And then that's when I discovered that there are things called voles that live here, because those voles love the roots of cardoons. And I would come along here and see a cardoon sort of flopped over, lift it, and it wouldn't be attached to anything. Well, one by one, they disappeared until eventually we had 2 left. So that was another thing. 32 I planted. Now I have a few here, there and everywhere, but most of them have self-seeded. And of course, it's one of those things that you learn. Plant what grows. Try not to fight it. Roll with the flow. And now another error. Rosemary. Where did rosemary go? This little pot of rosemary from a nursery. And when I took it back here, I noticed that there were actually 5 little cuttings inside the pot. So I opened up the pot, pulled all 5 of them apart and planted them here, there and everywhere. And I also planted one in this corner. See? And I thought, oh, that'll keep the voles away. But actually, it doesn't really like that corner. It's not sunny enough. And as for the other 4, well, I totally forgot where I planted them. And it was too hot to water them. And then I stood on them. So that was the end of those. All gone. So we're down to 1 little rosemary from the original 5. But we have planted another sort of creeping rosemary over the wall up near the vegetable garden. But again, 1 out of 5 is very poor results. So there you go. That's that. I do have another mistake. Well, it's kind of not a mistake. Let's just call it a steep learning curve. Shall we have a look at that? There's shaggy parasol. Sometimes people ask us, are we going to farm or are we going to have a market garden and sell commercially? Well, the answer is definitely not. But sometimes we have a bit of a laugh, you know, over after dinner and a glass of wine, and we say, oh, I know what we could grow. And first of all, it was loofahs, but that was a failure. Exactly been the year where I'm going to be a loofah farmer. Whoa, this feels slimy. Yeah, it's a bit floppy. It should be a bit stiffer. Then it was pistachios, but they're so expensive and will take too much time. But then we had the bright idea of planting saffron. But I'm going to let Dan tell you about that. I've planted them, and I'll show you that little section now. Well, this little bunch of sorry-looking flowers are Crocus sativus, which is the saffron crocus. And yeah, they should have been planted at least a month ago, but I managed to find them. And I've got 10. I'm going to plant these in a little area I've got behind me. To harvest the saffron, let's have a look. You get 3 of these stamens in each flower. And those are the stamens that have to be picked and dried and turn into saffron. These are actually a corm. They're going to plant them somewhere between 4 and 6 inches apart and the same deep. I'll admit it's not the most exciting looking planting ever. But you know, you've always got to start somewhere. Starting small is always good for an experimental crop. So we'll see how that goes next year.
So, saffron. Saffron is one of the most expensive food products in the world. I looked up the price of saffron, and for bulk quantities of saffron, you can get over €1,000 a kilo. Now, how much can we get from a piece of land? So we found that bit of information, and it's something like 25 kilos for a hectare of growing space. So that's €25,000 at a low price for 1 hectare. So we started off our crocus empire, and we got 10 bulbs in the garden centre. Now, the next bit of information I found was to get 1 kilo of saffron, it takes approximately 400 man-hours of work. And you need about 150,000 bulbs. So with our 10 bulbs, if they multiply a little bit next year and we've got 15, let's hope, then we might have enough for 0.1 of a gram. I don't think we're going to be saffron barons. But you never know. We might buy more, keep planting, and then we'll be the saffron kings. Or I'll be the saffron king, and Meraid will be the saffron queen. In our partnership, there is a division of labour. I always seem to prepare the beds and plant the seeds, and then Meraid comes along.
Yes, I come along and I plant things in those lovely beds.
And then I see flowers coming up that I didn't plant, and so I weed them out.
So that's Miami.
Oh.
My goodness me. Did you pull that out? There's Miami Major. I tramp all over his seedlings.
Meraid is standing in the new bed that's planted up with seeds, but we'll forget about that.
But that's enough about us. We would love to know if you've got any funny stories about gardening. Gardening on your own, gardening with friends, gardening with your partner, and let us know in the comments. We'd all love to read them, because a good laugh is always a good tonic.
Yes, and laughter is the best fertiliser in the garden. Don't forget to like this video, subscribe and share it with your friends. Bye.